Got Jackie Franchuli on the line talking Gators. You can catch her on allgators.com. I just texted out the point spread as well for the LSU game. You don't see this very often in this series. 22.5 right now, which is a bit higher than I expected, just because I'm thinking back to like the Tennessee game was more in the 15 to 16 range, and thought LSU was in that same category as a Tennessee. But of course, if you look at recruiting rankings, you look at the rosters, the talent on the field is very comparable, but it's just a situation where you've got a team that's put it all together this year under a Heisman Trophy winning or contending quarterback versus a team that's a bit dysfunctional. It's kind of lost its way and just lost all those key pieces from last season. So from a talent perspective, an upset is not out of consideration, but just these teams are just in completely different places right now.
Yeah, and I think it's just also 2020 affected LSU a little bit more, just because, like you said, they missed a lot of key pieces from last year's winning team. When you look at it, they had to pretty much organize a whole new offense under a whole new offensive coach, and it just takes time. They need a spring football season to really help that out. They missed out on spring practice. When you look at Florida coming into 2020, I always felt that this was Florida's year. They returned so many veterans on both sides of the ball, specifically on the offense. A lot of those guys that we're talking about had been under Dan Mullen's system for years. Look at Kyle Trask. He's been at Florida when Florida went 4-7. He's been at Florida for a while. He's also been playing with some of these guys for years. So I think when you look at Florida, they just were more prepared for 2020 because they already had chemistry built in. LSU did not have that chemistry. I think the only thing that Florida, obviously, I don't think this is a concern for the LSU game. This is more for Alabama, is just sharing things up on the defensive side of the ball. And I think that is the part where you're still having a question mark with Florida, because obviously you're also looking ahead to the college football playoffs. They're still ranked at number 6 there. You're still looking at that defense thinking, how is this going to play out against Alabama? Against LSU, they'll be fine because LSU's offense is not firing at all cylinders. They're going to struggle against this Florida defense. Zach Carter is going to bring the pass rush. He's been a force this year. Ventrell Miller had a great game last week, and I think Florida has enough to defeat LSU. When you look at Alabama, it's a different story. They've got incredible wide receivers. They're going to attack that secondary who has not had a great season. They've had flashes of good moments, but not consistent enough throughout the year. So I think that's a big question with Florida this year. They had so much expectation this year. But when I say 2020 benefited Florida against many teams because they did return a lot of veterans, at the same time, their defense has struggled because they did not have that spring season. And the fall camp was a little bit shorter, which didn't allow them to do a couple of those, hard-hitting contact practices, which you can see that Florida's defense has suffered because that most defenses in the country have suffered to this. We've been seeing higher numbers in the offense. I'm joking several times the SEC turned into the Big 12 for some of the scores that we've been seeing. So that's the one question mark I have with Florida. Again, I know we're brushing aside LSU, but when you look at them, it's just, if you looked at LSU games, you don't see where Florida can struggle with them, especially when you put how that LSU offense has been playing and how Florida's offense has been playing on a bad day. It's just the matchups aren't there in LSU's favor. So, but when you look at Alabama, that's the game where I was a little shocked that Alabama became a 14-point favorite. I think it was released yesterday. That was a little shocking to me. I expect Alabama to be a favorite, and right now I do kind of lean towards Alabama a little bit early on here, but I didn't expect a 14-point favorite.